So if the idea of investing in commercial property has suddenly become a little bit more interesting, it could well be something to do with all of the restrictions and all of the rules that are being introduced around commercial property. Like, it's a real minefield out there at the moment. So if you're thinking, maybe I should start looking at commercial property, you are certainly not alone. I've been hearing that a lot. So I've gotten a ton of questions from the various followers that I have on the social media asking me about commercial property. So today I'm going to try and break down all the pros and cons of commercial property and outline some of the risks that you need to be aware of before you get involved. Now, I've been investing in commercial property and residential property for about the last 30 years. And what I'm seeing today, what the industry data is saying, is that residential landlords are leaving the market in their droves. And a lot of that is down to the rent caps and the introduction of the RPZ for the entire country and lots of different things. So a lot of people have started to kind of get out of that market, and they're wondering, what are they going to do with the money? Where are they going to reinvest that? Like, the chances are, if you got into property, it was for a certain reason. Perhaps you don't like the volatility of the stock market or crypto or any of that kind of stuff. Like, that stuff can move really quickly. If you'd like to invest in something that's a little bit more familiar, and so if you're getting out of residential and you're thinking about, where am I going to go and put that money, maybe putting money into commercial is going to feel a little bit familiar, a little bit more comfortable than sticking into the stock market or whatever. The two options you might be considering are commercial property or residential overseas property. Now, I'm just back from Dubai in the last couple of days, and I'm actually going to make a video on that particular market. And that's as good a reason as any to go and hit subscribe. Make sure you don't miss that video when it does come out. So what are the pros and cons of investing in commercial property? The first thing I would say is that it is not what you think. We're not talking about big office buildings and shopping centres here. We're talking about small, kind of pretty boring and mundane, but highly practical commercial units that an ordinary investor who's used to doing residential property could easily do. There's not much fuss, there's not much drama, it's pretty straightforward, and that's one of the first things that people might be surprised to hear. To begin with, you're not dealing with individuals who are, thinking about a home. A home brings with it a lot of emotional baggage. It's like, how long will I be living here? Am I near my parents? Are my kids able to go to the school? All that kind of stuff. When it's commercial property, it's much more of a commercial transaction, and there is a lease contract involved. There's no drama. Obviously there can be issues with businesses and things like that, but it's not quite the same thing as a residential. The second thing to remember is that we're talking about a commercial lease agreement. We're not talking about a tenancy agreement in residential, which has all of these kind of protections, and you've got the RTB, and you've got all of these kind of things that just slows down taking action in the event that somebody stops paying rent or isn't doing what they're supposed to be doing. There is all sorts of regulations around how you enforce when it's a residential. In commercial, it's a lot easier. It's usually a lot cleaner, and there are established legal enforcement procedures that you can bring about pretty quickly compared to the residential side of things. Something else to consider is just the fact that this is not something that has a huge degree of political interference. At the moment, the housing crisis is something that is very much front and center in life, and so voters are out there making a lot of noises about it, and politicians are paying attention, and so they're doing a lot of things to try to make it easier for tenants and trying to kind of shake up the housing market and what have you. When it comes to commercial property, this is not on the radar at the moment, so there is very little political interference. Well, at least there is at the moment very little. Who knows what the future holds, but I do think that is definitely a consideration to bear in mind. I mean, the housing crisis is just such a big problem in this country. So another one of the benefits of commercial property is the way the lease agreement is actually structured. Terms are negotiated, and the way it's structured, there's usually a periodic rent review. So at the moment, there's all of these issues that we have in the residential market where you are limited to a maximum of 2% a year. In commercial real estate, the way it's done is that every 5 years, usually there's a rent review to the market. So whatever the market is at, you gather evidence, and then you're able to seek that increase for your own lease. Another benefit of commercial property is the fact that you know well in advance the expiry date and the break date. You can sign up terms with tenants that are years into the future, so 5 to 10 years. And the way it works with commercial real estate, which is different to residential, is that the longer the lease, the more valuable the property. If you look at the current controversy in the residential market, it is because there is a number of, there's like tons and tons of people, we'll say 90% of all buyers are buying for themselves. Only 8 to 10% of buyers are actually looking for a residential investment property. And so there is nobody looking for an occupied house to buy. The vast majority of people want a vacant house. Even if you're a landlord purchasing an investment property, the preference is that the property is empty and that you will find your own tenant. In residential, almost nobody wants to inherit a tenant. Commercial, completely different. You sign up a tenant for say 10 years, and then that 10-year lease is worth a lot. It's all based on the cash flow for that 10-year period, and it can be very valuable. I've seen some really, really interesting deals where just the fact that the lease is 10 years, you know what the income is going to be for the full 10-year period, it's a strong tenant, those can be very valuable leases. The next thing to think about when it comes to commercial property is just the enforcement if somebody is not doing what they're supposed to be doing. So I think probably one of the biggest concerns and criticisms of the residential market these days is that if somebody stops paying rent, or if somebody is in breach of their rental sort of tenant obligations, there's so many protections out there for them that they can almost run roughshod over the landlord. I mean, the landlord is in many respects just not able to get rid of the person, not able to kick them out. It can take 12 to 18 months to have like a bad tenant removed from a property. And so in commercial property, the terms are, it's a commercial lease, it's a contract, and if somebody is in breach, you can get a court order, an injunction, whatever it is that's required quite quickly. Certainly a lot quicker than in the residential market. And one of the things to bear in mind is just the fact that there isn't those landlord-tenant protections in the way the residential market has them. Probably the biggest benefit of commercial property over residential property is that the value of the asset goes up the longer a tenant is in place for. So unlike residential property, which really nobody cares how long a tenant is in that place renting it from you, with commercial property, the longer the lease, often the higher the value of the asset itself. And so that is a distinct difference between the two asset classes. And if you're thinking about selling a property that's residential, the overwhelming advice is to evict the tenants and put the property on the market as a vacant property. The reason for that is that the vast majority of people that are looking to buy property, they are owner-occupiers. They're looking to move home. They're not looking for a rental property to add to their portfolio. Maybe 8% of the market is looking like a landlord. 92% are out there looking for a new home for themselves. So that being the case, if you're trying to sell a property that's empty, you'll do better than if it's occupied. Commercial property, it's the complete opposite. You actually get an increase in rent the longer the lease, the stronger the tenant, the stronger the terms. And so it's worth thinking about. I've actually had leases in the past of 35 years. So somebody comes in, signs a lease, it's 35 years before they're going to vacate the property. And during that period of time, they will pay the insurance, they will pay the commercial rates, they will pay for the maintenance and upkeep of the building. I don't have any of those. As the landlord, I have none of those costs. And so for 35 years, I'm just collecting rent. And every 5 years, I'm increasing the rent at a rent review. Now, things have changed in the last few years with all of these companies scaling as quickly as they do. You had the likes of WeWork come along with co-working and things like that. And that has changed the way people now look for offices and look for commercial property. So it tends to be that there's not a huge amount of 35-year leases out there. There would be still 25-year leases knocking around, but they are getting shorter. And so probably typical would be like 15 years, certainly in the office market. So anyway, it's worth having a think about all of these things as advantages to commercial property over residential. We have to cover the negatives, the cons to commercial real estate. I think it would be dishonest to say that commercial real estate is all good, commercial property is all good. If it's done badly, if you go into it not knowing what to expect, it can be really, really painful experience. I've made a lot of expensive mistakes in commercial property, stuff that wasn't obvious to me going in, but soon after I learned the hard way. And so number one, I would say that tenants are quite difficult to find if you have a vacant commercial unit. Obviously it depends on locations and things like that, but generally speaking, at the moment in this Irish market anyway, if you own residential property and it's vacant, it will probably be one day until you have it occupied again. I mean, it's just, there's so much demand in the market. You can't say that about commercial property. If you have a vacant shop unit on a main street somewhere, you could be looking at months of trying to rent it.
So this place is called Tully, and it's a great playground, but they created this coffee shop and then they never opened it. Now I'm wondering, maybe they're trying to get somebody to rent it, but it's been open, this place has been open for 2 years, and there's a lot of parents coming here, so you'd wonder why they haven't opened it. Because it, like, that would be perfect coffee. Look, Tully Park Cafe. That would be perfect.
And it's not just months of trying to rent it. At the end, when you do find somebody, a lot of the time you have to incentivize them to go and do the deal with you. And what I mean by that is you'll have to maybe give them a certain amount of rent free. Sometimes they'll look for a contribution to their fit out. All of these things do have an impact on the bottom line. But then you end up with long-term stable income from this person. Another thing to think about, so those are, by the way, those are called voids. Those are when you have a vacancy in the property for a long time, that's called a void. One of the most important things to benefit from when you're owning commercial property is what's known as the covenant, the tenant covenant. And that is effectively a way of saying the tenant strength. So just to use this as an example, if you were to buy a commercial unit and it had a tenant in it, and the tenant is, we'll say, a startup that only just commenced business in the last few months, isn't making any money, and really it's hard to see whether it'll survive its first year. That person might be paying you, 30,000 a year in rent or something like that. Compare that prospect of that tenant paying you 30,000 a year and compare it with, we'll say, somebody paying you 30,000 a year who has an established company that's been here for 30 years. They do $1 million a year in profit. That company renting from your unit, even though the rents may be the exact same, there will be two very different valuations between the startup and the established business. And that is because somebody who is buying that property wants a stable income they can rely on. The startup doesn't necessarily give you that. The established business that's doing $1 million a year, you're looking at kind of more of a sure bet that that is going to continue to pay you the rent as expected. So I guess what I'm saying is that commercial property, it's not necessarily safer, but I think it's clearer. You know the outcome from the beginning. I think it's a little bit clearer to you. And let's just say that the risks are more upfront. And so going into it, you know what the risks are. And if you can manage those risks, you're going to do quite well. Okay, I'm going to wrap up the video now. Really, the final thing that I'll say is my experience with commercial property has been both positive and negative. On the upside, when it worked for me, it worked incredibly well, like far better than a residential deal would work. On the negative side, let me explain. So one particular deal that I did many years ago, I bought a retail unit for 600,000. I subdivided it, I rented it out to multiple tenants, and then when the income was stable from the 3 tenants, when they had fully moved in and everything was, open and trading, I put those units on the market for sale and I sold the entire investment for 3.7 million, like over 3 million profit on a 600,000 investment. Now, I did another deal a year and a half later, and I bought something for 500,000, so not far off the price paid for the first one. And I thought I was going to double my money, and I was thinking to myself, I was nearly counting the money before I had even bought the property. And I had a tenant lined up. Tenant pulled out. I didn't expect it them to pull out. And then I tried to find another tenant, and I could not. And I spent 9 years trying to find a tenant, trying to rectify the problem that I had of an empty unit in a poor location. And as opposed to doubling my money that I was hoping to, I ended up so exasperated that put the property on the market in an auction for the highest bid that I would get, that we would accept, and we ended up getting 130,000 for it. So from 500,000 purchase price, ended up getting out after 9 years for 130,000. So that was total disaster. So you can see the swing from one extreme to the other. Like, if you get it right, you can get it really right, but if you get it wrong, it can be a total disaster. So you really want to go in carefully into commercial property. But the first deal obviously kind of outlines what's possible. So it is quite an attractive proposition to get into commercial property. If you're interested, I have an accelerator program that teaches this kind of stuff. If this, the nuances, the ins and outs of how to do all that kind of stuff, if that's of interest to you, click on the link down below in the description and you'll find how to get in contact with me to talk about joining the program. Hope you enjoyed this. Take care. All right, guys, go and have some fun. Go for it. Go.